Let me say something that might feel a little bit uncomfortable for you, but it's honest. If you've ever felt like you were stuck, if you've ever felt that you were overlooked, or if you've ever felt like you were doing everything right, working hard, improving, showing up, and yet somehow the doors that you hoped would be open never did. That's not a coincidence. Today I want to tell you about gatekeeping because that's what I think it is. And the reason why I want to talk to you guys about this today is because gatekeeping doesn't just stall careers. It really messes with your confidence, your identity, and your self-belief. And so today I want to break down a couple of different things. I want to break down what gatekeeping really is, how it shows up at work, and I guess in life, and most importantly, how you can rise above it without losing yourself. So with that, let's get into it. First things first, gatekeeping is one of those battles that I don't think anyone really warned you about because it doesn't show up as a clear no. And it doesn't often come as some sort of rejection email or just outright pushing you out. But what it does, it shows up as silence, delayed responses, vague feedback, and constantly shifting expectations. Now, essentially, you're not really denied outright. You're kind of just never chosen. And here's a definition that I think matters the most, because gatekeeping happens when someone controls access to information, opportunities, resources, or advancement and decides who gets in and who stays out. And here's the important truth that I think a lot of people miss. And that is that gatekeeping is rarely ever about your ability, but it's mostly about someone's protecting their position, their relevance, or their comfort. And I truly believe that once you understand that, the entire game changes because you'll stop internalizing something that was never personal to begin with. And so how it shows up is rarely ever aggressive. I think, in fact, it often sounds pretty reasonable. It sounds sort of like you're not ready yet. That's just how we've always done it. You wouldn't understand this part. And so here's the part that hits the hardest because almost everyone has felt like this. You lean in, you ask very specific questions, thoughtful questions, not how do I get promoted, but what would you do to change this? Where did I miss the mark? What skill should I happen to sharpen next to get me to that next level? And instead of getting clarity, you often just get fog. Generic answers, surface level encouragement, the just keep doing what you're doing. See, that's not mentorship in my opinion. That's information hoarding. Mentorship is going to expand you while gatekeeping often is going to contain you. You see, real leaders love specifics. They'll give you the tools while gatekeepers avoid those specifics because if you get those specifics, that creates independence. And then that independence is going to threaten their control. And so here's the mindset shift that is really going to set you free. It's the thing that unlocks everything to you. Now listen carefully. When rules are applied inconsistently, they're not rules. Those are called filters. And I've watched this happen over and over. And quite frankly, it's happened to me in the past. A requirement is suddenly flexible for one person and not negotiable for another. Same standard, different enforcement. That's not excellence. That's about familiarity and fear. And so no confident leader is ever going to block someone from working too hard, but insecure people actually will. Because as a high performer, what I've realized is that your high performance exposes complacency and it disrupts comfort. Your work ethic becomes a mirror that they didn't want to look into. And so instead of raising their standard, they try to lower yours. So that's not a flaw, that's a threat. But most importantly, we could talk about gatekeeping all day, but we got to figure out how we can rise above it. And the first way is to stop asking for permission and start building proof. You see, gatekeepers thrive on control. So instead of debating them, you need to outgrow them. Now, this is the place where I think a lot of people get stuck because they keep trying to convince someone who benefits from saying no. So don't argue, just build evidence. Take on visible projects, solve problems that no one asked you to ever solve, or fix the thing that everybody complains about but avoids. And then, this is the critical part, document the outcome. You see, gatekeeping lives in ambiguity, and proof can always kill ambiguity. So when your results speak loudly, opinions lose power, even in the rooms that you're not. But the second thing you do is you learn the rules and then play around them. Now, every organization, every in-group has two systems. It has sort of the org chart and has the real power map. Gatekeepers aren't always the most senior people, but they're often the most connected. And so you want to observe who's getting invited into conversation, who influences decisions before meetings even happen, and whose opinion carries weight when they're not even in the room. And this isn't about politics, and it's not about playing games, but it's about pattern recognition and refusing to be blindsided. And once you see the patterns, you'll stop reacting emotionally and start moving strategically. Now, if you want more content just like this that helps you build discipline, purpose, and direction, subscribe and stick around because we're building something special here. The third thing to do is to build allies, not just skills. Here's the truth of the matter that no one wants to say out loud. Talent alone won't save you. Yeah, I said it. Gatekeepers fear networks more than individuals. And that's why they get uncomfortable when you expand your circle, because it irks them to see that you're making inroads without their blessing. And so what you want to do is build relationships one level ahead of you in adjacent departments and outside of your organization altogether, because skills will make you competent, but allies make you undeniable. When multiple people can vouch for your impact, gatekeeping becomes a lot harder to justify, and it's easier to expose. And the fourth thing is to speak in outcomes, not potential. Now, most people will try to advance by talking about what they could become or who they could become, where gatekeepers keep power by forcing you to stay in that space. So think of it like this. Your potential is like a resume, and the outcomes are a portfolio. Anyone can talk about what they might do, but few people can point to the receipts. So potential can sound sort of like, I've loved the opportunity to, I think I could add value by, I'm eager to learn and grow into. Now, there's nothing completely wrong with that type of language, but what it does is it keeps you dependent on someone else's approval. And gatekeepers love the phrase, you're not ready yet. So stop selling potential and sell your impact. So instead, say things like, on the last initiative, I led X, solved Y, and the result was Z. And if given the chance, here's exactly how I would take it further. And by doing this, what you've done is you've anchored the conversation in reality. You've demonstrated readiness without claiming it, but you've also forced a gatekeeper to respond with substance or expose the lack thereof. That's called leverage. That's the shift that changes everything. And I think this is really important because what you're not saying is, I deserve this in some sort of pompous way. What you're really saying is, here's the evidence, interpret it however you want. You see, confidence backed by evidence reframes the conversation from permission to inevitability. And the fifth thing is to know when to outgrow the room. And this is a hard truth. Some doors aren't locked. They're showing you where you no longer belong. And if your growth is going to keep getting blocked despite all of your efforts, your results, and your professionalism, that's not bad luck. That's data. If staying is going to require you to shrink, that's not loyalty to the company, that's self-betrayal. And leaving isn't quitting. Leaving is choosing environments that will match your ambition. And sometimes the best way to win against gatekeeping means leaving and leveling up somewhere else. So the reality is, gatekeepers want you dependent, and winners become indispensable or untouchable. And so you don't beat gatekeeping by fighting louder. You do it by becoming so valuable, so visible, and so connected that blocking you becomes more of a cost than letting you through. And let me leave you with this. No one controls your career except you. Not titles, not managers, not people hiding behind requirements. The moment that you stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself, everything changes. And the people that understand this early on are the ones that are going to build careers that no one can gatekeep. But I'm interested to know if you've experienced gatekeeping yourself. And if you have, I'd like you to drop it down in the comments. What did it look like? And what was the first sign that you recognize now before anyone ever says a word? Your lessons, your insights might save someone years. I'll see you in the next video. Peace and love.